Hello and welcome to Total Football, where we analyse the very best action from Europe's premier competition. I'm with Henry Hill. We've just watched Bayern Munich beat PSG 1-0 at the Parc des Princes. Henry, disappointing night for PSG.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't think they helped themselves. It continues what's been quite a difficult period for the club. The thing is, this isn't that shocking, I don't think, this result at all. We saw Monaco take the game to them at the weekend and just sort of overrun them. We've seen them lose their kind of big games recently against Marseille, Rennes and Lens in the league. And I think Bayern almost followed that blueprint and just went straight at them from the off. And that first half is one of the worst I've seen from PSG in a very, very long time. And let's not forget, okay, Mbappe wasn't fit enough to play the whole game, but they still had, Messi, Neymar on the pitch. They still had some quality running through that side, but I just think it looked all wrong. We said when we looked at that midfield, Danilo Pereira next to Verratti, the 16-year-old on the wing. I mean, they're not giving themselves much hope there, really. When you go up against a midfield like Goretzka and Kimmich, which is just such an oiled machine, I'm not surprised at what we witnessed. I thought Bayern were excellent. However, they haven't taken their chances and they've left the door open. And as we saw at the end, once the changes were made, once Galtier sorted out his team, that they can be got at. And actually, that 15 minutes has set this tie up for the second leg in a very exciting manner, because I really do think that PSG could muscle their way back into it. They just need to make sure they put out the right team to do that from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. It did feel like without away goals this year, this result is not, tie over by any means whatsoever. And as you say, that final few minutes where Nuno Mendes continued to cause absolute havoc down the left-hand side. What a brilliant footballer, not just his speed, but his technical ability in tight spaces as well. I thought he was excellent on the night, linking up with Mbappe. And there were some excellent blocks by Benjamin Pavard as well, who promptly then got sent off in the final few minutes. I thought one of the game's better performers, really. Crucial blocks on Neymar in particular, and one on Messi there as well. But yes, it wasn't a brilliant first 60 minutes from PSG. I mean, only one shot in the first half. I think they went the longest amount of time without a shot since Opta Records began in the Champions League in 2003, which is really pretty damning. And as you say, they've now lost 5 games in 2023, and they can't afford another last 16 exit. They really can't, because prior to that run to the Champions League final in 2020, it was 3 in a row, and it felt like this was a real sticking point. But they've left themselves open to it by not winning that Champions League group with Benfica, when they still had it within their hands in going into that final game, of course. So that was really disappointing. But Henry, Bayern Munich have had a little bit of a tricky patch in the Bundesliga. They've got back to it recently, but surely this was a really impressive display. Any onlooker, wondering where Bayern Munich are at right now would think this is a team at the top of their game.
No, absolutely, and I think it starts at the back. As you said, Upamecano was just excellent. 7 tackles and interceptions, 2 aerial duel wins, 93% pass success rate. They just look so composed next to De Ligt. You would never have assumed that they've been having difficulties sort of winning matches with those two at the back this season. It was excellent. But maybe the problem is going forward. And I think McManaman sort of managed to forget that Choupo-Moting is a striker. He's a good striker. He's been playing well this season, but he didn't take his chances at the end there. We saw Musiala. I thought he was brilliant again. Real shout out to all the youngsters in this match. Nuno Mendes on the PSG side, Musiala for Bayern. He was super exciting. Sort of 6 completed dribbles, absurd, sort of weaving his way through, created a few opportunities. But they had to put the game to bed. And ultimately, they're then relying on Sommer at the back, who I thought had made a brilliant Champions League debut for Bayern Munich, really showing his worth already since coming in from Mönchengladbach. They had to rely on him to pull off some really big saves to sort of keep it level. But yeah, I agree with you. For 75 minutes, Bayern Munich looked like the kind of side that we've seen roll over teams in Europe this season. But they, like I said, they've been showing that they are fragile, that they can be got at. And when you put a bit of weight and you can get behind that sort of defensive block of Goretzka and Kimmich, you can get at this back line with a bit of pace down the wings, certainly. So yeah, once they removed Cancelo in the first half, I thought they looked a little bit more shaky.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a big goal from Kingsley Coman that ultimately settles the tie. He's now got 2 goals and 3 assists in 6 games against his former employers. Not celebrating after he scored, obviously, but it was a disappointing goal from a PSG perspective. We've talked about Nuno Mendes going forward, but completely losing his marker at the back stick, and there was far too much space back there. And then Donnarumma in goal Felt like the sort of save that Keylor Navas would have made over the years just went straight under his sort of rib cage, really. But he did respond with some big saves, actually. Some massive saves from a Pavard header from a corner and a Choupo-Moting effort from inside the goal as well. So he did slightly keep PSG in the tie. But let's go back to Galtier's tactics, because he started with 4-4-2, and it felt like Fabian Ruiz on the bench came on, had a bit of an impact. Mbappe not fully fit, so it's difficult to blame him on that. But did you think the lineup that he sort of went with just instantly handed the initiative to Bayern from the start?
Yeah, absolutely, because it just invited pressure onto them, really. And you have to bear in mind that PSG are at their best when they're going forward and trying to break down defences. That's what they spend most of their season doing. And in this game, we saw sort of a real lack of creativity. Fabian Ruiz, we saw the impact that he was making, able to sort of break the lines with his passes. We saw the fact that even just having Mbappe on the last man meant that Messi could drift back a little bit and be a bit more creative. We saw him and sort of Neymar dropping deep at the start. And really, in the first half, those two were sort of being caught further up, weren't really able to do anything. We saw that one moment where Neymar was sort of chasing, trying to close down defenders, and there was no one else around him whatsoever. So Mbappe really helped stretch that defence. We saw the fear that he put into that back line. We saw the ability he just sort of, the space that he drew away that Nuno Mensch could then drive into on that left side. That just shows what kind of a magnetic presence he is when he's going forward. So yeah, they needed those creative players to try and unlock that attack. And we saw that once Fabian Ruiz come on. I think Vitinha, he deserves to get more minutes really in this side. But yeah, I think the next game, Galtier has to be bold. He has to put out a side that is going to take it to the opposition, because he can't be affording to leave it in spurts to these final moments, crosses, whatever. I mean, yeah, personally for me, they have to sort of take a gamble with that midfield. Put in a Vitinha, put in a Fabian Ruiz from the start, because Carlos Soler, he was sort of drifting in and out of position. I'm not sure he's really at the elite level of Champions League football, in all honesty. So yeah, it's on Galtier to make this work. I've defended Galtier a lot this season. I think he's obviously fallen into the PSG trap of what can you ultimately do with this side when it's quite tricky. It's eternally tricky for managers, as we've seen time and time again. But he got it wrong today, and I think if he's going to arrest PSG's difficult season and essentially save his job, because it is resting on this kind of fixture, then he has to put out a more productive, more progressive side in the next leg, because we've seen in the final 15 minutes that they can do it when they take it to Bayern.
Yeah, absolutely. It felt like there was just an absence of hope almost in that first 65, 70 minutes, of course. And, any side would have that. They were missing probably the best player in the world over the last 12, 18 months in Kylian Mbappe. Messi's had his moments, of course, but consistency probably goes to Mbappe, particularly on the back of last season, of course. But it feels like it would be so easy if PSG do get knocked out. Everyone will be like, oh, they've thrown away the Champions League for another year. And in this tie, it felt like they did slightly cede too much initiative to Bayern Munich. But I think they had problems before this game. They should have won that Champions League group, particularly with the performances that Juventus put in that group. And to not finish ahead of Benfica just set them up for a massive tie against a massive, heavyweight, as it were. So massive, massive issues for PSG, and it just felt like a few of their players were just slightly off the ball at just the time when you want them to be the most effective. I thought actually Neymar pressed really high. He was probably the only player at times in that first half that seemed to be, they seemed very disorganised, very ragged, a bit lost in and out of possession, and it was worrying display.
They couldn't hold on to the ball. Hakimi, that's the worst performance I've seen ever from
Got
Hakimi.
hooked, yeah.
Just quite rightly at half time looked much better when Kimpembe came on. At least sort of could match up to the players coming at them in that Bayern forward line. But yeah, I've never seen a team so devoid of confidence passing the ball around. And that really does start in the dressing room. That really does start with the manager geeing up these players to believe that they can take it on. And it starts, as you said, from losing a string of games in all the big clashes they've had recently, from not putting themselves in a position to be up against what should theoretically be easier opposition at this point of the game. So yeah, you're right. They've completely not helped themselves, and they're going to have to take a long, hard look at this season in many regards, because yeah, in the clutch moments of this campaign, PSG are sort of falling apart a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Henry, if we had to make a prediction, we said actually, I think I said pre-game that it should, I think I went 3-1, you went 2-1 to Bayern. Do you see any way that PSG turn it around at the Allianz?
I think they can. I absolutely think they can. I mean, it sounds so silly to say it, but with Mbappe, they do have that opportunity. We saw what he did to that defence, but I still think they're going to concede. They concede goals all the time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter who they're facing this season. They're conceding goals, and I do think that if Bayern can just be a little bit more clinical, as you said, Donnarumma did pull off some good saves from Choupo-Moting, etc. If Bayern can be a bit more clinical, they will maybe pinch a goal that could suck the life out of PSG. But if they can get an early lead, then I really wouldn't be surprised. We saw McCubbin backed them, and yeah, they're yeah. Like
he's known for his great predictions on EuroFootball Daily.
I think this is what Mbappe wants, and he showed that even at 60% how good he can be. There's a few weeks until they have to worry about playing this replay again. So if they can get him back to full fitness, if they can get figure out a shape which is appropriate, then yeah, they can definitely turn this around.
Absolutely, and they'll be missing Pavard, of course, for that second leg. Of course, they don't have Mazraoui, they don't have Luka Hernandez, they don't have Manuel Neuer, and for the first 70 minutes, and Sadio Mane, and for the first 70 minutes, you would have never have known how easy Bayern were making it look. But this tie, I think, is alive. But I think there are serious questions to be asked about Christophe Galtier on the back of that 4-4-2 we saw in the first half. Really not very effective. But guys, we want to hear from you. What did you make of it? Who do you think were the game's key protagonists? Let us know in the comments down below. Stay tuned for more Total Footballs this season in the Champions League knockout stages. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to EuroFootball Daily, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.